Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Week 6 is over. That means it's time for a brand new top 10 poll. I know you guys are excited. You value my my top 10 poll like the air you breathe. As well you should. But week 6 is come and gone. Time for another new poll. Let's do it. All right, subscribe if you're not already. I post college football videos every single day of the year. Give this video a thumbs up, and let's get going here. We're going to do it the same way. We'll start at number 10 and work our way down to number 1. And for a reference point, I'm going to put last week's top 10 up on the screen. Not the AP, not the coaches. Remember, this is the Uncle Lou top 10, the only one that really matters. So there's last week. So you know sort of where we started heading into this week. And we'll reveal 10 through 1 right now. All right. Coming in this week at number 10, new to the poll for this week, Florida Gators. I have Florida at number 10. Of course, a big win at home against Auburn this past weekend, a matchup of two top 10 teams in most polls, and Florida won 24-13. The game was never really in doubt. Neither one of these teams have great offenses, but Auburn's offense just was absolutely pitiful in this game. It just Florida's defense just completely shut them down. Bo Nix was more confused than a 2-year-old in a titty bar. He didn't know which way was up. He played really, really bad. Florida's offense played better and got the win. Both defenses, obviously, coming into this game, everybody knew both defenses were really, really good, and it was just a matter of which offense was going to be able to break through, sort of a first team to score in the 20s wins type of thing. That ended up being Florida. So I guess the Florida fans can quit crying now. They're in my top 10. Auburn fans can go back to crying again because obviously they're no longer in my top 10. I'm going to be honest, though. I really don't feel any differently about Florida than I did before the game. I'm just going to be honest with you. People can say I hate Florida or whatever. I guess I love the rest of the teams in my top 10. It's just Florida I hate, I guess. I'm not impressed with Florida's offense. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Florida looks like the exact same team to me that we've seen most years out of them over the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. A really, really good defense and a team that struggles to score points on offense against any good team they play. Yes, Auburn was the best team they played, but they struggled against Miami, only scoring in the 20s. They struggled against Kentucky, only scoring in the 20s. And now the Barn, their offense is not impressive. Trask has played, I guess, better than some people thought he would play, and they do have some good wide receivers, but their running game is non-existent. Don't even try telling me in the comments down below what about their rushing yardage against the Barn. You got that in garbage time at the end of the game on 180-yard run. And anyone that watched that game, there's nobody that watched that game, I promise you, that's impressed with Florida's offense other than Florida fans. That's it, okay? So that's how I feel. I think Florida's got a really, really good defense, and I think they still got a long way to go offensively. They look a lot like the team we've seen from Florida over the last lot of years, really. And the results are going to be very similar. They're not likely to win the East. If they do win the East, they'll get blown out in the SEC title game like they did the last 2 times they made it there back in, 15 and 16. I'm not impressed with Florida's offense, but they're undefeated. They've got a good win now at home against the Barn. They deserve to be in the top 10 poll. Here they are, number 10. Now this week they got to go on the road and play at LSU. So this may be a short-lived celebration here for Florida. I might have said the Barn a minute ago. Florida, obviously, I'm talking about here. Goes on the road, play LSU. So could be a one and done type thing in the Uncle Lou top 10 poll for Florida. But there they are this week at number 10. All right, number 9. I have Penn State. I thought about moving Penn State up, I'm not going to lie, over Notre Dame. I guess I'll talk about both of these teams at the same time. I've got Penn State at 9 and Notre Dame at 8, so same as last week there. Penn State beat Purdue 35-7. Notre Dame beat Bowling Green 52-0. Which one of those wins is more impressive? It's hard to say. Purdue is not a good team. What do they have, 1 or 2 wins? Bowling Green, obviously not even a Power 5 team. So in terms of the competition they played, neither of those teams is very good, but they both went out and did what you're supposed to do against lesser competition, which is dominate the game. So I didn't feel like Notre Dame deserved to be dropped. just because Penn State beat Purdue 35-7. I mean, I know that people are going to say, well, Bowling Green is terrible. I agree. But once they appear on Notre Dame's schedule, what else is Notre Dame supposed to do? And this goes for any team that plays, these lower teams. All you can do is go out and dominate. That's what you're supposed to do when you play these lower level teams. That's what Notre Dame did. Penn State beat Purdue 35-7. I didn't see a reason to move either one of those two around, so I left them as is. Penn State has to go on the road this week and play at Iowa. Probably their toughest game of the season so far, and it's a road game. Iowa, of course, lost last week to Michigan 10-3. Iowa's got a pretty good defense. They struggle to score points. But so we'll see how that one goes. Anytime you got to play on the road, strange things can happen, so we'll keep an eye on that. Penn State's been pretty impressive to me this year, though. I've had to sort of admit I was wrong on them. I thought this was going to be sort of a transitional year for Penn State. Not a down year, but a transitional year. Maybe, 8-9 wins. It looks right now like they're likely to win more than that. I can't really see Penn State doing any worse than 9-3 in the regular season, and then, of course, having an opportunity to get to 10 wins with a bowl game. And if things go well, they could do better than 9-3. Of course, they still have to play Ohio State. Michigan State. So they've got some tough games left to navigate. We'll see how they finish up the second half of their season, but I've got them at number 9. Notre Dame, like I mentioned, I left at number 8. Close loss to Georgia a couple of weeks ago. Rebounded with a win over a ranked Virginia team. I don't think Virginia's a great team, but that's currently Virginia's only loss still is on the road at Notre Dame. So I would put Virginia maybe in the good category. Definitely not a great team, but good. And then this past weekend, just dominating Bowling Green. They play Southern Cal this week at home. Southern Cal has been a hard team to figure out this year. I don't think Southern Cal is a very good team. There has been times where Southern Cal has looked pretty good, but generally speaking, Notre Dame is a better team and should get a fairly easy win here. I haven't looked at any of the lines for any of the games yet. I start my preview videos tomorrow, Tuesday. That's when I'll do that. A guess off the top of my head, though, is that Notre Dame is somewhere around a 13 to 16 point favorite would be my guess there. But anyway, more on that game on Wednesday. Tuesday, I'll do the SEC previews. Wednesday, I'll preview the top 25. And Thursday, I'll preview some other games. So that's 10, 9, and 8. Number 7, I have LSU. They beat Utah State 42-6. Utah State, obviously not a Power 5. Sorry. Utah State, obviously not a Power 5 team, but not a terrible team. I mean, they're not a Louisiana Monroe type of team. Okay, I mean they're not that bad. Should they be competing with LSU? No, and they didn't. LSU went out and beat them 42-6. I thought LSU's defense played well in this game. I know a lot of you who only read box scores are going to say, well, but it's Utah State. It's Utah State. I know it's Utah State. Again, here's the thing. Yes, it's Utah State. If Utah State would have scored 21 on them, what would you guys be saying? I can't believe LSU gave up 21 to Utah State. Well, they didn't. They gave up 6. I mean, so, again, what more can they do here? Oh, yeah, they could have shut them out, I guess, but, they held them to 6 points. The knock on LSU so far this year has been their defense. They gave up a lot of points to Texas, which is a pretty good team. Gave up a lot of points to Vandy, which is a terrible team. So that's been the knock on LSU so far was defense. Defense played well this past week, 42-6. Where'd I have them at? 10, 9, 8, 10, 9. I had them at 7 last week. I have them at 7 again here. It looks like, don't I? Yeah, I do. I do too. And, of course, like I mentioned, they host Florida this week. So the biggest game in the SEC by far, probably the biggest game in all of college football this weekend. I think College Game Day is going to be there, so this will be 2 weeks in a row. College Game Day, watching the Gators play. Of course, last week in Gainesville, this week in Baton Rouge. I would expect LSU to be close to a touchdown favorite in this game at least. I think it's pretty clear to anybody that has watched football this year that LSU has looked like a better, more complete and total team so far this year than Florida, and the home field advantage is a huge deal in this game. People are going to I tell you right now, I'm going to pick LSU to win this game. I don't know what the spread is, so I'll pick one way or the other against the spread tomorrow when I do the SEC preview. I'm telling you right now, I expect LSU to win this game. Again, the Florida fans are going to say I'm just a hater, and this guy always picks against Florida. No, this guy doesn't always. I picked you to beat Miami. I picked you to beat Tennessee, Towson, UT, Martin, whoever else you played. I did think you would lose to the Barn, and I do think you'll lose to LSU. So that makes me a hater. Then congratulations. Anyway, why am I back on Florida? Oh, yeah, I'm talking about LSU. But there's LSU this week in the poll, 10, 9, 8, number 7, right? All right, number 6 and number 5, I flip-flopped OU and Wisconsin. I thought about doing like I did last week and going through and doing this team is ranked this in total offense and total defense and scoring offense and scoring defense and efficiencies and all that kind of thing. But I spent a lot of time doing that last week. They haven't changed all that much, especially these two teams in particular, week to week. Here's sort of how I came across. Listen, you guys know one of the biggest complaints I hear from people in general about the major polls, the AP, the coaches, whatever else, is that they don't change enough once they see actual football. They don't change enough week to week based on results and how teams played and things like that, right? You get a preseason poll that's largely based on expectations and last year's performance, and then it doesn't change enough during the season is what people will tell you, right? Like Clemson was ranked number 1 in the beginning of this season. They obviously have not looked like the best team in America so far this year. Now, finally, they've been moved down a spot to 2 in these major polls. But again, Clemson has not looked like the second best team either. Let's just be real. So I hear this complaint all the time. But the preseason polls have too much weight because, a team like, I'm just using Clemson as an example. You guys know I think Clemson's going undefeated and making the playoffs. So, cry and type about it if you want. So we use Clemson as an example. People say, see, they put Clemson number 1 in the preseason based on last year. Clemson comes out, and there's clearly 4 or 5 teams that are playing better than Clemson, but they still have Clemson at 2. It's an unfair advantage to have the preseason poll. So I change my polls around based on what I see from week to week. And what I saw this past week was Oklahoma go out and play a terrible Kansas team. Please don't tell me that they beat Boston College 48-24. I told you when that game happened, they probably won't score 48 points the rest of the year. Kansas is a terrible team. They'll be lucky to win 3 or 4 games, okay? Extremely lucky. OU goes out and beats them 45-20. That's not a close game, right? But unfortunately, any team really gets compared against their previous performances. And for those of us that have been watching Oklahoma over the last couple of years, a 25-point win over the worst team in the Big 12 is not that impressive. It's just not. Now, you came out, you looked good like you always do, especially offensively. Your defense is still playing way better than what we saw last year. They're currently 37th in total defense, so a huge improvement over about 113th in total defense last year. We'll see if they can keep that up as they start to play some of the more difficult teams within the conference. But so, again, this I'm not really punishing OU, but Wisconsin goes out and beats Kent State 48-0. I know it's Kent State. This is Wisconsin's 3rd shutout of the year. It's hard to shut anybody out. They've done it 3 times. Wisconsin's defense is for real, I think. They've got arguably the best running back in America in Jonathan Taylor. This guy, this game here, he had 200 yards and 5 touchdowns in the first half. I love watching Jonathan Taylor play. So, to me, neither Oklahoma or Wisconsin beat a legitimate opponent. I agree. They both won comfortably. I just thought from watching some of both of these games, it just appeared to me that Wisconsin was a little bit more impressive this past weekend than Oklahoma was. This isn't a knock on Oklahoma. I've been very complimentary of Oklahoma, especially Jalen Hurts and their offense, and I have admitted time and time again that their defense is looking better than I thought it would be. I thought it would be improved, maybe 50 or 60 ranking spots, which would have put them around 60th or 70th. Like I mentioned, they're currently 38th in total defense. So overperforming on the defensive side of the ball in addition to having one of the best offenses in America like they seem to always have. So that's my rationale and reasoning for that. Oklahoma 6, Wisconsin 5. That moves us into the top 4. And my top 4 didn't change from last week. I'll just go ahead and show you it now. The thing is, half my top 4 had bye weeks, right? Clemson and Bama were off this past week. Neither one of them played. Now, if Oklahoma would have went out and beat a ranked team this past week, or Wisconsin would have went out and beat another ranked team or something like that in a convincing fashion, Maybe I would have considered moving one of them this week over a Clemson or a Bama team that was on a bye week. But, and again, this is no fault of Oklahoma or Wisconsin. It's just the way the schedule fell. Bama and Clemson were off. But you really didn't have a chance to move up this week because you just happened to not be playing very good teams this week. It's not your fault. You have to play who's on the schedule. You won convincingly. I'm not knocking. I keep saying this over and over again. The top 7 teams in this poll have a legitimate shot to win a national title, in my opinion, right now. 1 through 7 in this poll, somebody ranked 1 through 7 is winning the national title. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. If they do, I think they're a little delusional. But somebody ranked 1 through 7 is winning it all. So LSU, Wisconsin, and OU shouldn't be too upset that they're not in the top 4 of a Week 6 UNCLELOU poll. So I left Bama and Clemson alone because they were on bye weeks. I forgot to mention, but OU plays Texas next week. So OU will have a chance to impress people next week against Texas, right? A lot of debate going around about OU and LSU and kind of Wisconsin. Which team there is really the team that could separate and maybe make a push for the top 4? If OU goes out and dominates Texas by 3 touchdowns, they definitely deserve to be ranked ahead of LSU then, right? If somehow Oklahoma loses, then I think you got to probably swap Oklahoma and LSU on this poll, and maybe even move LSU a little higher. So you sort of get it. So that some things are going to start to work themselves out here. OU versus Texas. Wisconsin's playing Michigan State. Michigan State's not a great team, but they have a great defense. You have a really good defense. I'm going to talk more about that in a second when we get to Ohio State. So I left Bama and Clemson alone at 3 and 4. I left UGA at 2. UGA had a dominant win over Tennessee, but they struggled, especially in the first quarter, some into the second quarter. They took a 2-touchdown lead into halftime. So people who were saying they struggled the entire first half, I don't think that's accurate. But Tennessee definitely came out in the first quarter and outplayed Georgia in the first quarter. You can, as far as the reason why that happened, you can make up whatever reason you want. More motivated, home crowd, a change at quarterback sparked the team. Georgia just fell flat. Whatever. You can say whatever you want. Georgia got outplayed in the first quarter of that game, period. But they dominated in the end, winning the game. What was the final score? 43-14, I think it was, right? On the road at Tennessee. I'm never going to be mad about a 4-touchdown road win in the SEC. I was mad about the first quarter, but the overall performance, I thought Jake Fromm probably had his best game of the year. We had 3 running backs that seemed like they were getting 7 or 8 yards every time they touched the ball. Lawrence Cager had a good game. Defense played good after the first quarter. So all in all, I think a pretty good win there, considering it was a really bad team they played against. But again, I'll say the same thing like I said about Oklahoma playing Kansas. I mean, you tell me, who's better, Kansas or Tennessee? I don't know. I really don't. Oklahoma beats Kansas 45-20 on the road. Georgia beats Tennessee 43-14 on the road. To me, those are about equal wins. I mean, am I wrong? I don't know. Maybe. You're going to tell me I'm just a homer. I don't know. And then I left Ohio State at number 1. They dominated Michigan State, winning 34-10. This was the best win. Well, the best win was probably Auburn, right? But the second best win on this list this last week was Ohio State beating Michigan State. Again, you can tell me Michigan State's not a good team, and I tend to agree. Well, they're not a great team. They're a bad offense, but they have a legitimate defense, one of the best defenses in America. And again, don't waste time telling me any stats or anything about Michigan State's defense. Watch them play. Listen to people who actually know what they're talking about. Michigan State's defense is absolutely loaded. Ohio State goes out and dominates them 34-10. Justin Fields had another 270 yards in this game, 3 touchdowns. He did throw his first interception, but Ohio State did what they needed to do. What is this, a 24? So 3 touchdowns and a field goal win here over Michigan State. Bama plays at Texas A&M this coming week. Now, in the preseason, I thought that might be a tough game for Bama. Texas A&M has been disappointing this year. I really don't see any way Bama loses that one. I thought Texas A&M would be better, and they've sort of fell on their face. It looks like the same Texas A&M we keep seeing over and over again, unfortunately. We keep hearing that they're about to get better, but it keeps not happening. UGA plays home against South Carolina this week. I expect a score similar to the Tennessee score. It won't be – I'm not expecting much of a contest there. And Clemson plays Florida State. That has the potential to be an interesting game. I'm not impressed with Florida State overall. I do think Florida State played its best game of the season. They were off this past weekend, but the weekend before against NC State, I thought that was the best game they played. They finally played a complete game, right? Because they'd been basically only playing the first half and then not showing up in the second half against Boise State, Louisiana Monroe, and some teams like that. Not Louisiana Monroe. Yeah, Louisiana Monroe. Anyway, you guys know all about that. If Florida State gets them at home, I mean, Clemson's clearly a better team. Clemson's be coming off a bye week. It's hard to pick FSU to win this game. Obviously, Clemson is better, but so we'll see. I just think if you're one of these people that is looking for Clemson to win a game, to lose a game somewhere, maybe this is one you're putting some hope in. I don't see it happening, but there are some people talking about it. So anyway, there it is. That's your top 10, how they did this past weekend and what they have coming up the following weekend. Let me know where you disagree down below. Again, you can tell me pretty much anything you want about the teams I have ranked 1 through 7. In other words, you can tell me you think Ohio State is 7th. I disagree, but I think there's arguments that can be made for that. You can tell me LSU should be number 1. I disagree, but I think there's rational arguments that can be made for that. Teams 1 through 7, to me, are clearly the best teams in college football, in my opinion. And like I said, I think one of these 7 teams is winning the national title. I think the teams that are ranked after that, from 8 to 10, and even a couple of teams that would be after that, are in your next tier, right? Texas, Auburn, name a couple other teams, whatever you want there. But I think 1 through 7 are clearly the best teams here. So again, this is just my opinion and my poll. If you want to tell me Clemson should still be number 1, fine. You want to tell me they should be 7? I'm fine with that too. Want to tell me Georgia should be 7? Fine. Doesn't bother me. All of these teams 1 through 7, if they win their games, they'll be in the playoff. That's all that matters. So anyway, that's going to do it for this week's top 10 poll. I really appreciate you guys watching. Have a good morning.